In tonight's No Limit Hold'em cash game, the stakes are $2, $4, and we're going to be looking at a game that was played out on the 12th of September. Your commentators this evening are Dan Grant and Simon Hemsworth.
New hand.
Well, and off we go. We get the action underway. Do you have any recollections of this session, or is it all just going to be a little bit new to you as you see the cards on the screen?
I sort of vaguely remember playing it, but I don't think I can remember any individual hands. I
Is
think
that kind of pretty much a habit of guys like you who play a lot of online poker and one session is largely kind of irrelevant in the grand scheme?
I think you go a bit mad if you remembered every single session you played, every single bad
Or
beat.
you, or like James 66, you tweeted about every single session.
Yeah,
you'd at least have like a record of your career.
Yeah, he likes to keep a log of these things, but I can't really be bothered to do that.
Yeah. Well, here we go straight away. A premium for King and 7-7, a guy who's been around almost as long as we have, really.
I fold.
Since the very beginning on PKR. A fine gentleman. He's had what did he come second in the Masters at some stage? But he's known for his cash game exploits. He opens. Well, he gets 3-bet by Daniel Jung
All in.
or Jung. He
No,
gets
it's not
it
messing
in.
about.
All in.
Well, not the most fascinating hand.
Oh, was Daniel only had 50 big blinds?
Yeah.
That's why he did that.
Let's see the river.
And I'd assume if I was Andy, I'd be thinking, I raise early position, somebody 3-bets me from the blinds with 50 big blinds deep. He probably has some sort of hand, so he just thought, well, I'll just get it all in here, and the guy's going to struggle to fold anything, really, which is pretty much what happened.
Yeah. A couple of other names that we recognise. One of the 6 Germans at the table, Cabotajo, pretty much a standing dish at these kind of games for PKR TV anyway. And Dillboy is another one who's taken his fair share of credit and kind of critique over the years. Are you familiar with him?
Yeah, I actually met him last year. There was a tournament in Barcelona, and he came along to it. He's a really young guy. He's done really well to be as good as he is, considering I don't think he's been playing that long, and he's at uni and stuff. But no, he's crushed me. I say it's against, he's run very well against me, but no, he's a very good player actually, and a nice guy.
Okay, well, let's hope we see some of that this evening. Cabotajo kicks it off with aces, picks up a customer who has flopped pretty much squadouche, leads for 59 in the hope that on this very dry flop he gets some action.
Yeah, I'd bet maybe even smaller than that, because it's really hard for anybody to have anything there. So you want to bet small, hoping that the guy will do something like this with an air hand.
Well, I mean, he's called pre-flop. He's called the 3-bet pre-flop, Wessie, and at least with the intention of not just passing it when he misses, but his timing's a little off here.
I mean, sometimes you just got to give up. I mean, what is he trying to represent on that board?
Well, is
really
there also this worry if you're Wessie that, well, not a worry, but I mean, now you're like, oh, there's an overcard. I'm going to use that. Well, he chooses not to.
I mean, I don't know if Wessie knows much about Cabotajo, but Cabotajo's a thinking player. When he gets raised on Jack 7 Deuce Rainbow, he knows the guy doesn't have a hand very often.
Right.
And I guess Wessie's just decided to give up on the turn.
Yeah, and Cabo leads out on the end, kind of desperately hoping somehow the guy.
Yeah, it's a good bet. I think he was
call.
betting, hoping that I don't think he thought he had much of a hand, but I think he just tried to put a bet out that tries to induce some sort of raise. But I think Wessie had given up by that point.
Yeah, any argument? Given that he'd given up on the turn, is there any argument for checking the river and trying to induce that way?
I think from Cabotajo's point of view, he thinks, well, it's a chance he has some sort of jack that maybe he's pot controlling on the turn. So I think he wanted to bet an amount that might get called by worse hands, but also might induce a bluff. So he's kind of got both things going. Whereas if you check, he's probably checking back a jack. You might give up on the bluff anyway.
Right. Well, he's back in action again and declines the opportunity to 3-bet the button with a very 3-bettable hand in the ace-queen.
Cool.
And he snaps the squeeze from pocket sevens and, flops a queen straight away. And that's pretty much it, unless a 4 comes. Well, a 4 does come. And we we should always remember that really, when the money goes in, it's a race, and the story is irrelevant. Which is why I spend most of my poker career covering up the boards when the money goes in pre-flop, because I just don't want to know how it plays out. I cover up everything except the chips in the middle, and I just wait to see if they get shipped to me or not.
Isn't that the fun? That you enjoy no.
Or
you getting
I think
the sweat,
that shows
you
me
the
as
sweat by not seeing. You're just waiting for that moment where the chips go one way.
I just think that I don't want the downside that comes with losing in a horrific way, even though it's kind of irrelevant.
Yeah.
I think that shows me as zen, but obviously not zen enough to watch it and still not care.
Yeah, I think when you do it thousands of times, eventually you start caring a bit less, I suppose.
You actually start wanting the story because it just livens it up a little bit.
Definitely. If you're going to lose, you want to lose in a fun way that means you can moan at people and talk about how hey guy won out with me on the river. It's a lot more interesting than I lost a flip. You know?
Okay. I'll continue with my own way of doing
No,
things.
No, you got
it works for me.
Do whatever you want.
Yeah, maintaining my calm.
It's important things to do. Do what. Everybody's different. Do what makes you comfortable. Do what you enjoy doing.
Well, a heart
That's
is
quite
what they both
card.
want.
Okay, let's do it.
Dealboy continues.
I think it's a very standard bet. I mean, the guy's got a lot of mid pairs, like and a six that he should really be folding to. Second barrel.
Yeah, 3-3-2 in the pot. Does he have a third barrel?
I wouldn't, because everybody hates folding full houses. It's quite a simple concept. If the guy's got a six, he probably won't want to fold because it's a full house.
Yeah, we are rather denied the opportunity to see what Dealboy would have done on Brick River. And Acaperian just goes for the value.
Bet, actually, and Dealboy might
fold.
have thought about calling just because his king high beats a lot of the draws.
Right.
And that bet was quite tempting. I think it was something like third pot or something. So he might have called there sometimes.
Yeah. I suppose we, in terms of a 10-handed game versus a 6-handed game, I'm sure I know what your view would be, but in terms of televising it, bear in mind that we only get 2 hours, and if you make it a 6-handed game, you on the one hand you may think, well, actually it's quite lively, you get more play with marginal hands, but we tend to find that you get fewer opportunities, and it doesn't make for as good a show. And of course, you don't get as many people on the show.
Yeah, I mean that's the main
it's
advantage.
It's a difficult balance to strike, really.
You get more people get to play, but I much prefer 6-handed.
Right.
There's just a lot more room
Yeah.
to do creative things, and with full ring you're just stuck. There's just so many hands that you have to play in a certain way to be profitable. You can't, raise Jack 10 off under the gun and expect to make a profit out of it. But
I think the ideal situation would be is if we ran a 6-seat for, say, 6 hours and then took the best parts of that. But we can't really do that, unfortunately. But we might chuck the odds 6-seater.
Yeah, done a few. I remember I did the
generally
10,
the
20
higher, the
ones,
higher stakes ones.
And that was really good fun.
Maybe we'll revive that. And well, we can see that it's a very nice combo for Wessie.
Fold.
And, well, I'm sorry, dude's only got 160, so he hasn't got a lot of options here.
I mean,
Well, he calls.
yeah, he's got lucky there, but I think you should be raising that. I just think it's you call and you miss, it just leaves the stacks kind of difficult on the turn.
I was wondering how Wessie had 5% as opposed to, say, 2%. But he's got the double belly buster straight flush.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, I was like, 5%? How is that even
it's not
possible?
that dead, yeah.
I'd only figured out the 5 of hearts, but actually the... Oh, no, hang on. Yes,
yeah,
the
9.
9.
The 9 and the 5.
One time. Well, and he really would have loved that flop, loved that turn, and then seen the bad news. But there we go.
I think he was quite short, at least, the other guy, so it wasn't a huge pot.
Yeah. I think perhaps we should enforce like one maniac because it's amazing the effect that of dropping one maniac into a full ring game. You would perhaps think it wouldn't have that great an effect, but they can completely take the place over.
You just employ potato salatis.
Indeed, it has been considered.
No, I mean, he would just one player and hit, and just him creating action will make other people play differently.
Yeah.
And that's why I love it when Bane sits at high stakes.
Right.
Because even though he's not necessarily somebody you want to play against, what he does do, he makes other people play badly or play out of their comfort zone, and then they make more mistakes. So it just makes for a much more interesting and profitable table usually.
Well, Dealboy's opened, gets 3-bet from Westy with the Queen 3 of spades. Fairly safe flop for the 7s.
Yeah, Westy looks like he's here to play.
Innocuous looking flop. Interesting to see what Wessy's going to try and represent. I guess it's a big pair. How far do you want to go with the 7s is the question.
Well, I think I'm not sure if Westy knows that much about Dealboy, but I think that he would give a random person a lot of credit if they multi-barrel on this board. Because it just looks like he has a big pair. And if he did have a big pair, he would be liking that board. So
I'm gonna call.
Well, he makes the call, implies that he may well be looking to call, 150, 200. Which,
I don't know. I think he'll fold to one more bet. But
and will Westy follow through? It's crucial that he does, presumably. Carry on the story.
Well, that's
Whoa.
I do like that.
I'm gonna fold.
Well, it very much feels like aces or kings, doesn't it? Especially the shove on the end.
I mean, if I was still I'd probably folded the turn. But I mean, it's a good fold because he's. I don't think from what you've seen, he hasn't done anything too crazy like a massive bet like that. It's just a good bluff. And if he's thinking about Dealboy's range, Dealboy's representing the sort of hand that he had.
Right,
and
so he's kind of playing it face up.
Yeah, if he knows that, then he just knows, well, I look like I have a really good hand, and I know that you probably don't have the sort of hand that you can call with.
I raise.
Well, I'm sure if he ends up watching this, he'll feel good about that. And I expect it's the kind of move that you feel pretty good about making at the time.
Yeah.
Even before your opponent's passed, you're like, yes, I've overshoved the river with nothing.
Oh, yeah, that was a big bet.
Yeah.
That was a big bluff, and he was obviously proud of it because he wanted to show it. So,
well, German versus Canadian. And the king's hit. And, a little piece of it for CPW as well.
Check.
Easily enough to be check calling.
Okay, let's do it.
Well, it's a small bet. It's half pot by the king.
I'm raising.
Well, I was going to wonder, when do you raise and when do you call it down?
I think just calling would be okay there because it's not really a board that hits many hands,
All in.
and he's just going to bluff at it a lot.
Yeah, well,
Raising's okay. Raising's going to put pressure on, mid-pocket pairs, so you can possibly get it off on future streets. And there's also, with 5-4, there's a lot of good turn cards. Any spade is a good card. There's 6, there's a deuce. There's a lot of cards that give you more equity that you can barrel on.
You've kind of played your way off the good turn cards, really, by check raising, haven't you, I suppose?
Yeah, but I mean, if I was him, if I was the guy raising 5-4, I wouldn't actually expect the other person to shove that often. And
okay.
I mean, if I was the guy with King Queen, I'd have called with that hand. I'd have kind of called with a lot of different hands, but I wouldn't really be shoving with too many.
Well, we can expect him to get involved again, the Swede. Love it. Wow, he passes the King Jack. Obviously, it's not a bad pass, but after what we've seen, it's curious.
Call.
Deuces picks up a customer with 5s.
Those King Jack type hands are really hard to play in full ring because
Right.
you just.
I call.
If you call with them, you're going to get either a lot of people calling behind you, or you're going to get somebody squeezing behind you and things like that. So you kind of need to. I think folding or raising is a better play with those sort of holdings.
Well, this is an interesting point. It's the
Okay,
deuces
let's
who
go.
opened. He checks. The 5s, if it wasn't so multi-way, the fives wouldn't think it was too bad a flop. Of course, the 2 case aces are in their hands. Jenny Doom, a former Masters champion.
I check.
Well, there's some split outs there as well.
Okay, let's go.
Jenny is out of position to all of them here and is now checked twice.
I don't really understand.
Bit curious?
why. Yeah, I mean,
you've got to
you've
get
got a
value
really
at
good
some
hand
point.
in a four-way pot. To make money, you have to put some money in there.
Yeah, there we go. And, well, now you think you're up against a queen, presumably, and you can start making some money.
I call.
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily be like wanting to get all the money in,
Right.
But you got trips, good kicker.
Yeah.
There are a lot of West hands that will call you. I mean, you want to.
I mean, given
Yeah,
it's
rebetting
given
there.
it's 4-way raised pot pre-flop, and the pot's still only $98, you'd imagine if a little bit of money had gone in on the flop, Jenny would be winning a decent-sized pot.
Yeah, and she or he will feel a bit stupid there. I think that they'll be like, well, why didn't I put some more money in at various streets? But there's. So it's good to be cautious, really,
Right.
in multi-way pots, unless you have the absolute nuts sometimes, because you can get yourself in trouble.
Okay, we're all passing round to Acaperion. Gets out of the way, and it's Steelboy's turn.
Raise.
We'll be hoping for some action, but unlikely to get some from Gandalf.
Raise.
Okay, I take that back. And Oggy, well, presumably short stacks,
sure.
kind of spoils the pot here in a way, but good for him. And interesting spot for Deal Boy. It's another $74, and the story that's being told is such that
Fold.
he gets
Yeah.
out of the way.
Yeah, I think that's
And,
good fun.
and now Gandalf's got 50 more.
Well, I'm sure.
Well, he's
Dilby
getting...
would have called the
Right.
the shove, obviously, but I think he's just frightened.
Yeah.
That the other guy has a big hand.
Yeah, Gandalf, he's getting better than 2 to away.
Yeah,
better
no,
than
he
2
has
to
to. He
1
has
there.
to call that. Yeah.
And he's got a draw.
Let's see that.
Hey.
When he gets there, oh dear. Well, I guess you are somewhat at the mercy of the cards if you're a short stack.
Yeah, what can you do? I mean,
yeah.
I think he decided to 3-bet
You-
3-4 off, which isn't necessarily the best hand to 3-bet, but
Right.
there's nothing particularly wrong with that,
Yeah. And it worked
and
out.
it worked out. Yeah,
It did
it
work
works out.
yeah.
It can't be that bad. Can
Well,
it?
you're only like 35-40%, which
Yeah.
is not a disaster.
Fold.
Limp under the gun with pocket 10s. An opportunity for pocket 8s here. Even though it's relatively early position, you want to be clearing out everyone behind you,
Yeah.
presumably.
I mean, eights it's similar to the King Jack sub situation. I mean, the guy limped, so it's a bit of an easier decision. But if you raise, it's just a tough spot.
Yeah.
Because you call and then you just behind you can get.
Wow. Well, look at this pot already, $76, and it looks to be going at least 5-way. It's a 6-way pot. No one's going to be that happy with their hand, particularly pocket 10s.
It's like live poker. This.
Yeah, and actually pocket 10s we can see is plenty ahead, but very difficult to know that.
I mean, I would just take a start with 10s here and just in the hope of either just taking it down or thinning down the field and going from there, because it's such a dry flop. Most of the time people are going to fold. It's just hard for them to really continue with many different hands.
Right, and interesting spot for 8s here, because the 10s is now going to feel a little bit more confident about being ahead.
Check.
But the 8s is like, well, if there isn't a king out there, oh wow, the 10s checks. The 8s checks. What is this? Is this like a $16 flip and like no one's allowed to actually bet?
Oh, there you go. Well, like I
Boom.
said, I think it's like live poker. Everybody's
Wow.
just very, very cautious, doesn't really want to.
That is very odd indeed. And now the 10s is going to bet, surely. Oh, well, the 6-5 got there.
Wow, not only does he...
The 6-5
the
got
6-5
there.
got there.
The 10s gets out of the way, obviously. The 8s presumably raises.
I was wondering at what point this pot was going to get big.
Oh my god, this is so bizarre, this pot. So bizarre. And of course, pre-flop, the 8s, the 10s limped. So a very passive way of playing 10s, even though you're under the gun. I mean,
It's
come
really
on.
unfortunate for the eights, especially because I think he would expect 6-5 to bet the turn quite a lot of the time.
Oh,
so
really?
It's quite, yeah, because
Wow.
well, I mean, nobody showed any interest on the flop. The turn was a blank 6-5.
Okay.
Could reasonably think it probably would have worked actually if he'd bet. Everybody would have folded. So he can expect to get that through.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe Akaparian's not thinking that much. But
Okay, well, the ace queen's going to get out of the way, and happy days for the Brit with the nuts.
yeah, Sash as well because his stack means Akaparian can't really fold to a shove.
Well, I don't think
Okay, that's me.
you get the impression that he wouldn't ever be passing. There's only one hand that beats him. Well, we know that pocket. Whoa!
I can't believe he did that.
Wow, I can't believe he did that either, and so quickly as well. That is an
mean,
astonishing fold. Is it almost a bad fold, or is it a really good fold?
I think it's slightly bad. I think just because the guy, you have to assume, can you really say that the guy has 6-5 such a high percentage of the time that he
fold.
that a fold's right there? I mean,
Wow.
he's getting really good odds. Surely he has worse sets in his range. He has some weird bluff in his range. He has some sort of two pairs maybe that he's, I don't know.
That is just a completely bizarre pot because they check it all the way down and then he 3-bets to 200 on the end. Absolutely, well,
Well, I mean, you got to respect the discipline. I certainly wouldn't have folded that.
yeah. Wow, that's quite unbelievable, really.
You've even got to factor in things like this is PKR
pair.
TV. Well, no, but I was going to say this is like PKR TV, so people might be want to do a bit more crazy stuff.
Okay.
They might do a really crazy bluff, so they
Right.
want it to look good on the PKR TV. I don't know.
But someone might have just I suppose it's unlikely to be 2-pair using the 8. It'd have to be the case 8. But I mean, you just never know, do you?
No couche.
I don't know. It was
Wow.
and
it was only 100
No, it's about 200 more.
Oh,
maybe
right, okay.
260 maybe I think. But he was getting very good odds.
yeah.
I mean, he does have 6-5 a lot, definitely a lot. But I
Right,
just don't know if he has it
Yeah.
so much that
And I mean,
You can fold
what a
that.
result for the guy with 6-5 who peels 6-way pre-flop and then is allowed to run a runner
Let's see the flop.
the nuts.
yeah.
Very strange. And would never have got paid off unless he'd hit that 8 on the end.
No, yeah, that was definitely the dream card for him.
Well, here we go. A chance for the guy in position, as is often the case, to take it down. Little pot seems rather insignificant and should be finished here,
Here's the turn.
but it's PKR TV, so it's not. Onwards we go.
Yeah, I think you see people do this quite a lot. They call with ace queen because they know it's a good hand, but then they miss the flop, and then they're like, they still see how strong ace queen was pre-flop. They still see the value in it somewhere. Even though I mean that's a terrible flop for ace queen and a really bad. You're out of position,
And it's getting worse.
Yeah, it's got worse.
Wow!
Wow.
It's bizarre as well because on the one hand I was about to say that nowadays the kind of floating with ace high has entered the poker vernacular so much that pretty much everyone knows to do it. They're just not quite sure when to do it. And that's what I was assuming he was doing, is like, well, you can't always give up a pot on the flop with ace high, which to some extent is true, I would think.
I mean, on that,
Depends.
I think it's.
But not on that flop.
I don't think on that flop every turn card's bad apart from an ace or a queen. I mean, on the turn, maybe he's thinking, because it goes four straight, maybe he's thinking the guy would only bet with the straight card, which is hard to have. So
Wow.
he just thought, I'll go with it. But I think you just gotta fold those flops. You just more often than not, you're gonna get yourself in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, that was a surprise, but we like a surprise, no doubt about that.
Yeah, again, it worked out.
Yeah.
Let's be results oriented.
Rewarding creativity.
Yeah.
Let's see.
All right, well, here we go.
Check.
And another interesting spot here for the ace high paired board. Not much there to be too afraid of initially.
Bet.
Depends what. I mean, the poker really depends on what you think of your opponent, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I wouldn't mind a raise from Dillboy there. Even though you raise, you're not repping that much. You kind of just for value repping a 6 in your opponent's size. If Akaparian's got his
Let's see the river.
better race or whatever, there's not a lot you can do. What do you do? Do you float? Do you re-raise? It's just a difficult situation.
Yeah, no,
and he happened to have jacks. He had jacks this time, so he wouldn't have folded. But
Right.
you know, I think Dilboy's probably just thought, well, my ace side's good a decent amount of the time, and
And there's, I mean, it's a small pot here, but there's a little opportunity for some value. You certainly shouldn't pass it up, even on a paired board, and with the third nuts. He gets a small call, and we end the 2-4 session with a relatively modest hand, but some interesting poker there nonetheless.
Congratulations there to B. Moorcroft, who's won $344. And worst off was Dilboy, who ended up $410 down. Dan, what stood out for you?
Well, those figures kind of tell the tale, really. There were no massive pots, and really, ending up $400 up or down in a 2-4 game is kind of neither here nor there. So no big stories to tell, but I did love Wessie's play. I thought he was fantastic. He was one of only 2 players in that whole 2 hours who was there, for every hand, and he seemed to play every hand, particularly the Queen 3 of spades, where he 3-bets Dilboy's pocket sevens, and then he just barrels him the whole way, and it just shows you, if you've got a consistent story and you don't pull back from the brink at the last moment, then you can get these crazy bluffs through. And Dilboy, he made the call on the turn, but he just couldn't quite bring himself to call the river. And it was a fantastic example of creativity and heart, which are 2 things that you really need in a cash game.
And Scott, what effect does a TV table have on a cash game?
Well, I mean, a full ring cash game usually is going to be pretty much fold. And compare that to a 6 match, which is a lot more action. When you have a full ring game that's televised, you're probably going to get more action than you would in a 6 max game. It's just ridiculous. People trying to show off and do some crazy plays.
Brilliant. Well, look, thank you guys, and thank you. We'll see you next time at PKR TV.